Eric Smith is one of the wildest gangsters to ever come out of New York. Smith, better known by his nickname, E-Moneybags, was a man who walked in two worlds, sharing high school classrooms with future rap legends like Jay-Z, Biggie Smalls, and DMX, while also building a reputation as one of Queens' most notorious stick-up kids. Though small in stature, E-Moneybags was a rare breed who would bully the bullies, earning himself a reputation so fierce that even legendary rappers and crime bosses feared him. Bags' connections ran deep in both hip-hop and the streets, from his early friendship with Tupac Shakur to his later alliance with 50 Cent in a deadly war against Kenneth Supreme McGriff and the Supreme Team. When Jay-Z thought his rising rap fame meant that he could disrespect E-Moneybags, the future billionaire rap mogul found himself in unfamiliar territory, frantically calling Nas, begging him to call off E-Moneybags, the same E-Moneybags who had already proven that he would go to war with anyone, anywhere, anytime. In the dangerous streets of Queens, where stick-up kids and hustlers lived and died by the code, E-Moneybags refused to back down from anyone, a trait that would ultimately put him on a collision course with some of New York's most dangerous players, and that would forever change the course of New York history. So, let's get straight into the story of Eric E-Moneybags Smith, a certified savage. Eric Smith, also known as E-Moneybags, was born on November 19, 1970, in New York City, New York. Although remembered as a Queen Street legend, Smith originally hailed from Brooklyn, New York, growing up in some of Brooklyn's most well-known housing projects, including the Cooper Park houses and the Sumner houses. Smith spent most of his early life in Brooklyn, where he attended George Westinghouse High School. Although Westinghouse may have seemed like a typical high school in New York, it was far from ordinary. That's because Westinghouse had a long list of alumni who went on to become world-famous rappers and actors. Rappers Jay-Z, DMX, Biggie Smalls, and Busta Rhymes all attended Westinghouse at the same time as Smith. DMX was the same age as Smith. Biggie and Busta Rhymes were both 2 years younger. And Jay-Z was 1 year older. Actor Michael K. Williams, best known for his role as Omar Little on the legendary TV show The Wire, also attended Westinghouse and was 4 years older than Smith. That's to say that, long before they became household names, Smith knew rappers like Biggie and Jay-Z on a personal level. As we'll see, these connections would follow Smith throughout his life. Smith would develop a close relationship with Biggie, and the two would remain good friends until Biggie's death in 1997. In this clip, you can see Biggie backstage at the set of Jay-Z's music video for the song, Dead Presidents. In the video, Biggie asks the cameraman if he heard about E. The person that he's referring to as E is E-Moneybags, which was Smith's nickname in the streets. The camera then pans to Bags, who's sitting right next to Biggie. Bags then gives a series of shoutouts.
You know, backstage, dead president, you know.
Hey, shit is funny. You heard about E? You heard about E?
You better ask.
Stop your underground rough house shit on the nigga. Stop your shit on the son.
Oh,
underground rough house. Niggas don't know about E.
Moneybags, firm, baby. Queens in the house, representing firm. That's enough. If it ain't rough, it ain't right. You know how I go.
However, Bags' relationship with Jay-Z could instead be described as complicated. On one hand, Bags had family connections to Jay, after Bags' sister married Jay-Z's friend, Sauce Money. For those who don't know, Sauce Money is a rapper, and would make many guest appearances on Jay-Z's early albums, including on Reasonable Doubt. Jay-Z also wouldn't hesitate to call up Bags, and ask for favors off the strength of them having gone to high school together. Jay knew Bags had deep connections across the city, in terms of both the streets and the rap industry. So, when Jay needed help putting his music into the hands of local DJs, or getting features from well-known rappers that were friends with Bags, Jay wouldn't hesitate to call up Bags and ask for a favor. In most cases, Bags would try to help out Jay. However, as Jay got more famous, he may have felt like he didn't need Bags anymore. Jay then started treating Bags in a way that Bags felt was disrespectful. This would cause Bags' relationship with Jay to become rocky, as Bags took deep personal offense to how Jay switched up on him. This would then lead to the now legendary Hot 97 call between Bags and Jay, when Bags would phone into the legendary New York radio station and publicly call out Jay-Z while he was live on air. But calling out Jay on Hot 97 wasn't enough for Bags. After the incident, Bags would also privately tell his friends that he was going to body Jay-Z for his disrespect. Jay would catch wind of Bags' plans, and the threat of E-Moneybags coming after him reportedly had Jay-Z in fear for his life. Jay would reportedly call up Nas, pleading with him to talk Bags off the ledge.
Bags told me that y'all went to high school with Jay-Z. I'm like, what? Bags said, nigga, I'm from Sumner. I'm like, oh, get the fuck out of here, yo. You from Brooklyn, nigga? He's like, man, Jay-Z went to high school, man. Come on, man. He's like, that nigga used to talk hell. Like, man, that nigga went to high school, man. So I'm like, oh, shit, that's kind of crazy, man. And he's like, yo, man, he was like, Sauce Money is married to my sister. I'm like, oh, shit, get the fuck out of here, son. I'm like, well, he's like, man, fuck that nigga Jay-Z. That nigga's a bitch-ass nigga, son. I know that nigga, man. That nigga, blah, blah, blah.
We will discuss the beef between E-Moneybags and Jay-Z in greater detail later on in this video. After spending his early years in Brooklyn, Bags would relocate to the Left Rack City projects in Queens, New York. At that time, Queens was described by a New York Times article as facing a crack plague, which was causing record levels of violence in the borough. Drug-related violence was causing double-digit increases in the number of homicides. In 1986, for example, the number of homicides in Queens had increased by 20% in a single year. The next year, in 1987, Queens would see another 25% increase on top of that. To give you an idea of just how bad the situation was, consider the following story, a story which had made headlines across New York when it originally happened. In 1987, the NYPD would seize a military-style armored van in Queens. The van was equipped with steel plate panels and gun ports. The steel panels protected the van against gunfire, and, with the gun ports, the van's occupants could gun people down from inside the van. Police said that this armored military-style van had been retrofitted by a local drug gang in Queens, who used it to make crack deliveries, and to also patrol and protect their drug turf. To put it simply, the streets of Queens were like an active war zone when E-Moneybags showed up to town. And Bags would find himself right in the middle of that war zone, having relocated to the infamous Left Rack City housing complex. Left Rack City is one of the most well-known housing complexes in Queens. Made up of 20 apartment buildings, all 17 stories high, and containing a total of nearly 5,000 apartment units, Left Rack was one of the areas hardest hit by New York's crack epidemic. Left Rack quickly developed a reputation for drugs and drug-related violence, a place where shootouts and police raids were a normal part of everyday life. Its notorious reputation would eventually lead to Left Rack developing its infamous nickname, Iraq. That's to say that Left Rack was being called Iraq decades before the world ever heard of a Chirac.
Now what's that about?
Iraq was like, you know what I'm saying, it's like Left Rack. Left Rack is Iraq. And I figured like Left Rack needed a different name. You know what I'm saying? It needed a name where people could look at us and be like, what we are. And a lot of people from Left Rack, if you do the knowledge to them, they're like rebellious. Mm-hmm. And that's what people from Iraq is, they rebellious towards the American government.
Moving to Left Rack would mark a turning point in Bags' life. It was the 1980s. It had been less than 25 years since the passing of the Civil Rights Act, and the opportunities for young black men in urban America were still bleak. Although hip-hop culture was on the rise, New York was in the deadly grip of the crack epidemic, which was tearing apart the city's black and Latino communities. The only realistic options for someone in E-Moneybags' situation seemed to be sports, entertainment, or the streets. Bags could try to play sports. However, by all measures, Bags wasn't athletically gifted, and was also relatively small in physical stature. Entertainment also didn't seem like it was worth pursuing. At that time, Bags didn't have the same vision as his peers from Brooklyn. While Biggie and Jay-Z saw the potential of hip-hop, Bags focused on what was in front of him. The streets. Left Rack was a war zone. It was survival of the fittest, and it was up to Bags to decide whether he was going to be the prey or the predator. Bags ultimately decided that, in the grimy streets of New York, it was always better to be a wolf than a sheep. While his peers from school were on their way to becoming legendary rappers, Bags was now on his way to becoming a legend in the streets. E-Moneybags would quickly develop a reputation as a notorious stick-up kid and hustler. Ironically, as a stick-up kid, Bags was small in stature and far from physically intimidating. However, he understood that size meant little in the streets. Bags may have been short, but with his gun and absolute fearlessness, he may as well have been 7 foot tall.
E-Moneybags was a loved nigga in the hood. He was respected. He came up in his ranks from private to sergeant to general.
As the saying goes, it's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog. And Bags had that dog in him. Whether you were a drug dealer, gangster, or even crime boss, Bags wouldn't hesitate to come after you. He was the rare breed who would bully the bullies. In an interview on Vlad TV, G-Unit rapper Tony Yayo would openly speak to this. Tony Yayo would say that there were 3 gangsters who were known to terrorize Queens. One of those gangsters was E-Moneybags. Tony Yayo would have been speaking from first-hand knowledge, as he's also from Queens and was active in the streets around the same time as E-Moneybags. Tragedy Gaddafi is another rapper from Queens. In a recent Instagram live, he would also describe Bags using similar terms.
Like, I had no idea E-Moneybags was gonna become this infamous, gangster persona to the world. And was I on my toes when I ran into him in Now Session? You motherfucking right! The nigga's a shooter! He's an assassin!
Although E-Moneybags was notorious for being a stick-up kid who never hesitated to bust his gun, he was also a hustler. Bags would get close to the other well-known hustlers from Left Rack, including Star Kim and his brother, Wise. Queens rapper Noriega, who is now most well known as the host of the leading podcast, The Drink Champs, is also from Left Rack. Noriega would drop Star Kim's name during a freestyle at Hot 97 and rap about just how big Star Kim was in the game. On that freestyle, Noriega would say, quote, "I used to rhyme as a hobby in my building lobby. Effing up ounces, take it back to quarters then. Wholesale for Star Kim, or even Sean Waterman." End quote. In other words, Star Kim's name was the type to come up in conversations about wholesaling, not petty hustling. Star Kim's brother, Wise, was also known to get money. In 1997, over 300 New York City police officers would conduct a massive raid on Left Rack, arresting 24 people, including members of what police referred to as the Wise Crew. According to police, local gangs were making a little under $5 million per year, hustling in Left Rack. E-Moneybags would develop close connections with the big-time hustlers from Left Rack, such as Star Kim and Wise. In this picture, you can see young E-Moneybags on the left. Star Kim is on the right. Just like Star Kim and Wise, E-Moneybags was also getting money. As mentioned, Noriega was also from Left Rack City. Noriega was 7 years younger than Bags, and looked up to Bags as a big brother. On the song, All We Got Is Us, Noriega would also rap about how Bags was getting money, and how he wanted to be like Bags, growing up. Noriega and E-Moneybags would develop a good friendship, and E-Moneybags would even be featured on the outro for CNN's legendary debut album, War Report. The outro would include a conversation between Bags and CNN rapper Capone, while Capone was in jail on a parole violation. However, Noriega wouldn't be the only famous rapper from Left Rack that E-Moneybags would become friends with. Mobb Deep rapper Prodigy would also spend time living in Left Rack. Prodigy and Bags would become good friends after being introduced to each other through a mutual friend of theirs named Shamik. The story goes that Shamik had been hustling for Bags. One night, Shamik was supposed to attend a meeting with Bags at a gentleman's club. Rather than attend alone, Shamik would bring Prodigy with him and introduce him to E-Moneybags.
Me and Shamik moved left at the same time, and Shamik doing his thing, doing my thing, and we bumped into each other. We didn't even know we was both moving left. Right? I bumped into him walking down the block. I'm like, "What the fuck you doing out here?" He's like, "I just moved out here." So I just moved out here. He's like, "Oh shit, what up, son?" You know what I'm saying? That's crazy, son. We both moved to left, right. He's like, "Oh shit, that's my nigga." So down the line, Shamik started bringing E-Moneybags to Queensbridge. So that's how I met Bags, you know what I'm saying? The Bags, they would start hanging out with Nas and all that. So that's how I met Bags. Bags like, "Yo, what up? P, you the god, P. P, you the god, P. Niggas can't fuck with you, P." He used to be, that was my nigga, son. He loved Mobb Deep. That nigga loved me, son. That was my nigga. He really was feeling my music, you know what I'm saying? And me as a person, like, he used to always tell me, like, "Yo, son, you that nigga, son." You know what I'm saying? For real, son. Niggas gotta give it up to you, son. Niggas don't give it up to niggas is bullshitting, son. They lying. So, whatever, you know what I'm saying? That was my nigga. I was real close with that. Me and him got real close through Shamik and through Nas.
After that night, Prodigy and Bags would continue to randomly bump into each other around town. In his book, My Infamous Life, Prodigy would describe one of those times. The story illustrates just how wild E-Moneybags was. The story goes that there was a party being held at a sports bar one night. The party was being held by Green-Eyed Born, a notorious gangster and former member of the infamous Supreme Team. Prodigy was in attendance when he randomly bumped into E-Moneybags, who was also there that night. Without warning, Bags then suddenly pulled out a gun. Bags looked to Prodigy and would tell him, "Some people I'm having problems with might show up. I might have to lay something down tonight, son." Let's take a step back for a second and consider this for a moment. Most reasonable people, including gangsters, wouldn't risk going somewhere to hang out where they knew their enemies might have the drop on them. After all, why would you risk getting shot or going to jail just to have a few drinks at a bar? However, Bags wasn't a regular person. He was a different breed. While most people avoid drama, Bags ran towards it, refusing to ever back down or do anything that would make him even look scared. However, E-Moneybags' connections went farther than just Left Rack. Bags had family in North Queens, including a cousin who went by the nickname Homicide. Bags would link up with his cousin after he relocated to Queens. Homicide was a member of a gang in the area, known as the Young Guns, and Bags would eventually join too. The Young Guns were based around the Springfield Boulevard and 111th Avenue area of Northside Queens. They were involved in serious crime, including drug trafficking, armed robbery, and shootings. They had gotten their name from the older gangsters on the block. The older gangsters had noticed that the young boys in the neighborhood had suddenly started walking around with serious weaponry. Around the same time, a new cowboy movie, named The Young Guns, had also just been released. One day, one of the older gangsters then jokingly asked, "Who do you guys think you are?" The Young Guns. The name would stick. Being from Northside Queens, the Young Guns would develop serious issues with a gang from another part of town. In the 1980s, there were serious issues between Northside and Southside Queens. Although Northside was active, it's widely acknowledged that Southside had dominated the streets of Queens at that time. Southside were considered the trendsetters, money-getters, and drama-setters in Queens. However, Southside didn't dominate Queens because they were more savage, or because Northside was weaker. Southside dominated for one major reason. They had unity and stuck together. If someone from Northside had issues with somebody from Southside, they would have problems with multiple different Southside blocks. However, Northside didn't operate like that. Northside was instead divided, as each block in Northside thought of themselves as separate, choosing to both stand and fall alone. At that time, it's reported that the Young Guns were at war with a gang from Southside, known as the Lost Boys. The Lost Boys hailed from the infamous South Jamaica section of Queens. The Lost Boys would also break into the rap game with a legendary rap group of the same name. During the 1990s, the Lost Boys rap group would drop many now classic songs, including Renee and Lifestyles of the Rich and Shameless. However, the beef between the Young Guns and Lost Boys was not a rap beef. It was a real beef that played out in the streets. Some unconfirmed rumors suggest that E-Moneybags may have played a role in starting the beef after he allegedly killed a member of the Lost Boys during a drug robbery. However, E-Moneybags would really put the Young Guns on the map after an infamous shootout with the Lost Boys at a local movie theater, a shootout that would make national headlines. As Mobb Deep rapper Prodigy would later state in his book, My Infamous Life, Bags was the reason the movie theater installed metal detectors. The story goes as follows. On Christmas Day 1990, there had been a late-night screening of The Godfather 3 at the Sunrise Multiplex Cinemas, a local movie theater in Valley Stream, Long Island. The Sunrise Multiplex Cinemas had a reputation for being dangerous, as there had been multiple violent incidents in the past, including shootings in 1987 and 1988. However, people purchased their tickets, went inside, and found their seats, as everything appeared to be normal when the movie started. Approximately 15 minutes later, a group of teenagers entered into the packed theater. Not caring that they were late, the teens were talking loudly and disrupting the movie. According to police, even after getting to their seats, the group that came late continued to disrupt the movie. Another group in the theater then yelled at them and told them to shut up. This then led to a heated verbal altercation. The two groups that were now arguing inside of the packed theater were E-Moneybags and the Young Guns and the Lost Boys. Naturally, both gangs refused to back down from one another. The argument would reach a breaking point when someone pulled out a gun and fired a shot into the air. In an instant, the entire theater descended into chaos, as at least 5 gangsters from the Young Guns and the Lost Boys began exchanging gunfire inside of the packed theater. Moviegoers hit the floor, panicking and looking for the nearest exit, as over 25 shots would be fired into mayhem. Throughout the shootout, The Godfather 3 also remained playing on the screen. Once the smoke cleared, 4 innocent people had been hit. The first victim was 15-year-old Tremaine Hull. Hull was from Hollis, Queens, and had been fatally struck in the back of the head. The second victim was Hull's friend, Tarain Haynes. Haynes was seriously injured after being shot in his left eye. He was a high school basketball star at Forest Hills High School in Queens and would later sue the movie theater for $100 million after he ultimately lost his left eye. The third and fourth victims were a married couple from Long Island who were seated at the back of the theater. The husband had been shot in the shoulder. That same bullet had traveled through his shoulder and then struck his wife in the neck. News of a reckless and brazen public shootout between teenage gangsters at a late-night screening of The Godfather 3 would make national headlines. Under intense public pressure, police would make numerous arrests, including arresting 17-year-old Lawrence Bartley.
Nassau County cops say tonight they've arrested a 17-year-old from Queens. He was allegedly involved in the Christmas Day gunfight between two gangs at the Sunrise Cinema on Long Island. The shootings left 3 people wounded and a 15-year-old boy dead.
Bartley was from Southside Jamaica, Queens, and was no stranger to gunplay. Despite only being 17 years old at the time, Bartley had already survived a previous shooting. In that prior incident, Bartley had been hanging out with friends on a street corner when a man pulled up on a motorcycle and opened fire on the group. Bartley would be struck 4 times. Another person charged was 18-year-old Norman Williamson. Williamson, who reportedly went by the nickname Homicide, the same nickname as E-Moneybags' cousin, would himself be shot by police while being arrested at a local skating rink. Police claimed that he had reached for an officer's gun, which then prompted officers to open fire and seriously injure him. Police initially filed charges of reckless endangerment against Bartley and the others. This was because police were initially unable to determine which bullets came from which gun, including the fatal bullet that killed Tremaine Hull. However, forensic analysis would later lead police to determine that the fatal bullet came from Bartley's gun. Bartley would stand trial and be convicted of murder before being handed a sentence of 27 years to life. While incarcerated, Bartley would express deep remorse for his role in Hull's death. He would use his time in prison to turn his life around and become a professional journalist. Bartley has since been granted parole and was released in 2018 after serving 27 years in prison. However, while Bartley used the shooting as an opportunity to turn his life around, Bags would continue to go hard in the streets. The Sunrise multiplex shooting simply marked another incident in the street saga of E-Moneybags. The shooting showed the world that Bags wasn't afraid to bust his gun anytime and anywhere. E-Moneybags also wouldn't pick and choose who he went to war with. This was clearly demonstrated when Bags decided to go after one of New York's most feared crime lords, Kenneth Supreme McGriff. The story goes as follows. E-Moneybags was a hustler, and one of the things that hustlers enjoy is pushing the newest cars. Bags was no different. He was known to push what were considered some of the flyest cars at that time, including a Nissan Maxima and a Lexus. However, there was a new car that Bags wanted. A 2001 Lincoln Navigator with a TV and PlayStation 1 inside. Rather than go retail, Bags decided that he would grab a Navigator off the black market. At that time, there was a woman who was working for the Supreme team, selling tagged cars. The Supreme team was a street crew based out of the Baisley Park projects in South Jamaica, Queens. The organization got its name from the nickname of its leader, Kenneth McGriff. McGriff had went by the nickname Supreme and would build the Supreme team into one of New York's biggest and most feared street crews. During the 1980s and 90s, the Supreme team would commit dozens of murders across the city as part of an illegal enterprise that pulled in millions of dollars per year. However, the thing that Supreme would be most famous for was allegedly placing a failed hit on rapper 50 Cent when 50 was shot 9 times in front of his grandmother's house in South Jamaica. To put it simply, E-Moneybags knew who he was dealing with when he decided to buy this car off a Supreme team affiliate. Bags would call the woman up and put a $1,000 deposit down for the tagged Navigator. However, Prodigy would later give Bags $2,500 for a beat that Bags had produced on Mobb Deep's 1999 album, Murder Music. With the extra $2,500 in hand, Bags decided that he no longer wanted the tagged car. Bags was instead going to take the $1,000 he gave to the Supreme team affiliate, combine it with the $2,500 that Prodigy gave him, and use that money to now buy a legitimate car. So, Bags called up the woman and asked for his deposit back. However, the woman told Bags that she needed to run it by Supreme first. She then told Supreme the situation. She said that E-Moneybags wanted his money back and asked what she should do. Supreme then told her, "We have a no refund policy here. He's not getting his money back. I don't care who he is." The woman then relayed this message to Bags, telling him that Supreme said no refunds. This left Bags furious and feeling deeply disrespected. Supreme had brushed Bags off like he was a punk, like he was nothing to play with. Supreme had violated Bags. Doesn't Supreme know who I am? E-Moneybags must have thought. I'm not the type to play with. It really wasn't about the money for Bags, it was about the principle. Bags didn't care who Supreme was, nobody was going to try and son him, and not give his money back. In response, Bags made the fateful decision that he was going to take out Supreme. It didn't matter who Supreme was, it was really death before dishonor for Bags. Bags would strike in December 1999. On December 11, 1999, Bags was at the Coliseum Mall in Jamaica, Queens. It was the holiday season, and even gangsters like Bags had to do their Christmas shopping. Coincidentally, on that day, Supreme also happened to be at the Coliseum. As Supreme was leaving the mall in his Land Rover, he was spotted by E-Moneybags. For Bags, it was on sight. The only way Supreme was leaving the mall was in a body bag. Bags then pulled out his gun and proceeded to dump his clip in Supreme's car. However, what Bags didn't know at the time was that Supreme wasn't alone in the Land Rover. Sitting in the passenger seat of the car was another Supreme team member named Colbert Johnson. Johnson, better known by his nickname Black Just, was a well-respected and loved figure in New York and one of Supreme's right-hand men. Realizing that Bags was shooting at the car, Supreme then pulled out his own gun and tried busting back. However, Supreme's gun allegedly jammed. In an unfortunate series of events, Black Just would be seriously wounded in the shooting, after a bullet from E-Moneybags' gun would strike him in the thigh and sever his femoral artery. The femoral artery is one of the biggest arteries in the human body and supplies the entire lower body with blood. If the femoral artery is severed, this results in massive blood loss, which can then lead to death if the bleeding isn't contained immediately. For example, former NFL player Sean Taylor died after a 2007 home invasion in which he was shot in the leg and suffered massive blood loss due to a severed femoral artery. After being shot by E-Moneybags, Black Just would start bleeding out profusely in Supreme's car. Black Just's life now depended on Supreme getting him to the nearest hospital. At that time, Mary Immaculate Hospital was still in operation and was located only 5 minutes down the road from the Coliseum Mall. However, rather than drive Black Just to the hospital, Supreme would drive all the way back to their neighborhood in South Jamaica. Someone else would then take Black Just to the hospital. But it was too late. Supreme's decision would seal Black Just's fate. Black Just would suffer a fatal heart attack due to the untreated blood loss and pass away in hospital. Bags initially didn't realize that Black Just was in the car. It would actually be a member of the Supreme team who would break the news to Bags. The story goes that one day, Bags was at the corporate office of Def Jam Records. While there, he would walk past an office belonging to a man named James Anthony. Anthony, better known by his nickname Bimmy, was a member of the Supreme team. The reason why Bimmy had an office at Def Jam was because Bimmy's sister, Deborah Anthony, is a well-known hip-hop manager with deep connections in the rap industry. Deborah Anthony is also the mother of rapper Waka Flocka. However, as Bags walked by Bimmy's office, he noticed that Bimmy was actually inside. Bags then turned around and went back to Bimmy's office. Bags never had a problem with Bimmy or Black Just. Bags' beef was a personal beef with Supreme. Even if Bimmy now had a problem with Bags for shooting Black Just, Bags knew that Bimmy wasn't the type to try to handle that beef at Def Jam's office. Bimmy also wasn't worried because, unknown to Bags at the time, Supreme had placed money on E-Moneybags' head in response to Black Just's death. Green-Eyed Born, another former member of the Supreme team, had even warned Prodigy to stay away from Bags, lest Prodigy get caught up too. However, Bags and Bimmy would proceed to have a conversation inside of Bimmy's office. During the conversation, Bags would openly tell Bimmy that he didn't mean to shoot Black Just, and that the bullets were instead meant for Supreme. Bimmy then broke the news to Bags that Black Just had actually died. As bad as he felt, Bags left the Def Jam office that day knowing one thing. This was no longer a personal beef with Supreme. After killing someone as well loved as Black Just, Bags knew he was now at war with the entire Supreme team. There's an ancient proverb that says, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Bags understood this, as he would link up with Supreme's enemies to go to war with him. And Supreme had a long list of enemies. It wasn't possible to run a street crew like the Supreme team and not make some enemies along the way. The first person Bags linked up with was a man named Troy Singleton. Singleton, better known by his nickname Big Nose Troy, was a notorious gangster and stick-up kid from Queens. In many ways, he was another version of E-Moneybags. Big Nose Troy also had problems with the Supreme Team. In 1995, Troy was arrested and charged in connection with a double murder, following a shooting at a basketball game in Basley Pond Park, a park located in the heart of Supreme Team territory. Troy then came to suspect that a member of the Supreme Team was cooperating with the police against him. That member of the Supreme Team was allegedly Bimmy, something which Bimmy denies till this very day. This angered Troy. Like E-Moneybags, Troy was a gangster who lived and died by the code. Troy thought, you guys are supposed to keep it real, and yet, I have to worry about one of your mans snitching on me, after a shooting in your own hood. From that moment forward, Troy would have tension with the Supreme Team, tension that was well known in the streets, and tension that E-Moneybags would use to get Troy to ride out with him against the Supreme Team. In an interview with DJ Vlad, Tony Yayo would openly say that there were only a handful of people in Queens who didn't fear Supreme. E-Moneybags and Big Nose Troy were on that list. Here were two of New York's biggest stick-up kids and most feared shooters coming together against a common enemy. Running down on people and sticking up hustlers wasn't new to them. This was what Bags and Troy did best. And they brought the war to Supreme, running down on Supreme Team members and sticking up their spots. E-Moneybags and Troy would also hit Supreme where it hurt most, by attacking Supreme's affiliates in the music industry. Supreme had recently come out of jail and was trying to become a legitimate businessman. As part of this, Supreme linked up with a man named Irving Lorenzo Jr. Lorenzo Jr., better known by his nickname, Irv Gotti, was the co-founder of Murder Inc. Records, a record label that once included big-name artists, such as Ja Rule, Ashanti, and Black Child. Irv Gotti was, in many ways, Supreme's ticket out of the streets. Bags knew this, and decided to strike. In his book, My Infamous Life, Prodigy would describe how Bags went after Irv Gotti. One day, Prodigy and Bags were sitting in Bags' new Lincoln Navigator. Bags then received a pager message from former Murder Inc. artist, Cadillac Taw. In the message, Cadillac Taw gave Bags the drop on Irv Gotti and Ja Rule, telling Bags their location, and saying come and get them. Bags would allegedly show the pager message to Prodigy, who was sitting right next to him. In other words, Cadillac Taw had allegedly set up his own people. After getting the drop on Irv Gotti and Ja Rule, Bags got together with Big Nose Troy, and they went after Irv Gotti and Ja Rule. Cadillac Taw's information must have been correct, as Bags and Troy would catch up to Irv and Ja, and rob them both for their chains. Years later, Irv Gotti would appear on the Drink Champs podcast, with E-Moneybags' friend, Noriega. During the interview, Noriega would ask Irv Gotti about the situation, and specifically about Cadillac Taw's alleged involvement. Irv Gotti would give an evasive answer, but would clearly say that he will never trust Cadillac Taw after what had happened. After Troy, the second person that E-Moneybags would link up with against Supreme was another Queens gangster, named Curtis Jackson. Jackson, better known as 50 Cent, was a well-known gangster in the streets of Queens. 50 was from South Jamaica, the same part of town as the Supreme Team. Being from the same part of town, 50 was familiar with the Supreme Team, and knew many of its members, including Supreme himself. In fact, 50 would later make a tribute post to Black Just on his Instagram, saying that Black Just had always looked out for him, and rest in peace. As a young kid, 50 would train at a local boxing gym. Black Just would open up his wallet to help renovate the gym, provide whatever boxing equipment the fighters needed, and generally looked out for the young boys at the gym, like 50. And 50 still appreciates what Black Just did for him, till this very day. However, 50 and Supreme would fall out because of 50's beef with Ja Rule. Supreme had been affiliating himself with the record label, Murder Inc. Ja Rule was Murder Inc.'s biggest artist at the time. Ja Rule would be robbed for his chain, in South Jamaica, while shooting a music video there, in 1999. The person who allegedly robbed Ja Rule was a man nicknamed Little Troy. Not to be confused with Big Nose Troy, Little Troy was also from South Jamaica, and grew up with 50 Cent. According to 50, he personally had no knowledge or role in the robbery. However, after the incident, Ja Rule would see Little Troy hanging out with 50, outside of a club. 50 and Little Troy were chopping it up, and Ja Rule felt that 50 Cent must have been involved in the incident. It's for this reason, because 50 Cent knew the person who had robbed Ja Rule in 1999, that 50 Cent claims Ja Rule developed issues with him. However, Ja Rule's position has been that 50 Cent was the one who had problems with him, after Ja allegedly brushed 50 off, after 50 had asked to do a track with him. Regardless of the cause of the beef between 50 Cent and Ja Rule, it led to a series of violent incidents between 50 Cent and his associates versus Ja Rule and Murder Inc., who were being backed by Supreme. 50 would then drop a controversial song called Ghetto Koran. The song was controversial because 50 would openly rap about well-known street figures, including Supreme, and several key members of the Supreme team on this song.
Supreme was the businessman and Prince was the killer. Remember? He used to push the bulletproof BM, His head get you seasick. I sat back and peeped shit. They roll with easy water then. They get blunted. Had the whole projects working for 50 or 500.
The combination of 50's problems with Ja Rule and Murder Inc. and Ghetto Koran would lead Supreme and Murder Inc. to put a contract on 50's head. On May 24, 2000, 50 Cent would be sitting in a car in front of his grandmother's house in South Jamaica with a man named J.U. when he would be ambushed by assassins sent by Supreme. A vehicle would pull up beside the car that 50 was seated in, a man would exit out of the passenger side and would shoot 50 at least 9 times at point-blank range. Contrary to popular belief, and even what 50 himself said on the song, Many Men, the person who shot 50 was not Daryl Homobomb. The two assassins responsible for shooting 50 were Robert Lyons, aka Brooklyn's son, and Chauncey Milliner, aka God B. In this picture, you can see Supreme and his right-hand man and nephew, Prince. Standing in the middle is God B. After the shooting, members of Murder Inc., including Irv Gotti, would celebrate, believing 50 was dead. According to police, Irv Gotti would send a flurry of messages after the shooting. In one text message, Irv would say, quote, F $50, me and my N-words kill for fun. End quote. A former associate of the Supreme team would also testify that shortly after the shooting, Brooklyn's son and God B would go to an auto garage in Brooklyn before going to a mall, where they went on a shopping spree, so that they would have receipts that could serve as an alibi, showing that they were nowhere near the crime scene at the time of the shooting. While 50 was recovering in the hospital, he would be visited by E-Moneybags. Bags would reassure 50 that he wasn't alone against Supreme, and that Big Nose Troy and Bags were riding with him. 50 had love for Bags, and had even shouted out both E-Moneybags and Big Nose Troy on his infamous song, Ghetto Koran, the same song that many people believe also led to Supreme wanting to kill 50. Bags would take 50's shout out to heart, and even mention it in his own songs. On his song, The Gospel, E-Moneybags would say the following, quote, I'm printed in the Ghetto Koran, the last verse from 50. End quote. Many people say that if things had turned out differently, E-Moneybags would have been one of 50 Cent's closest friends today, possibly even being a member of G-Unit, alongside Tony Yayo and Uncle Murder. With 50 also on his side, E-Moneybags was building a street coalition to fight against Supreme. But, at the same time as this was happening, Bags had been actively involved in the music industry. This is because, as wild as he was, Bags wasn't stupid. After spending enough time around his rapper friends, he had realized something. Bags realized that the streets were a fool's game. While Bags was in the streets, risking his life and freedom daily, his rapper friends were making millions, living a lavish celebrity lifestyle, which didn't come with a price tag of death or a long jail sentence. As Bags himself put it, rap was like robbery without a gun. Bags figured that if these rappers were making fortunes while only pretending to be gangsters, it was only right that he should get in on the action. After all, he was actually living that life. This would drive Bags to get into the music industry. Bags would co-found a record label, known as Grand Imperial Records, with a person named Christopher Walker. Walker, better known by his nickname, Majesty, was another member of the Young Guns gang, as well as a member of Live Squad, a New York-based rap group that included his older brother, Randy Walker, aka Stretch. As an interesting side note, Majesty and Stretch are also the blood uncles of current New York rapper, Shawnee Bin Laden. In the music industry, Bags would have a part to play in the stories of many legendary rappers. This includes 50 Cent, as well as several other rappers. One of those other rappers was the legendary Tupac Shakur. Although Tupac is most well known for representing the West Coast, he was actually born in New York and began his rap career there. While in New York, Tupac would become close to Live Squad, including Stretch and E-Moneybags. Tupac was originally a conscious rapper who focused on themes like black nationalism and revolution in his music. It wasn't until after Pac met E-Moneybags while filming the movie Juice that he would start screaming thug life and develop his more well-known gangster and street persona. Tupac and Bags would become good friends. You can also find countless pictures and videos of them together during this time period. In this video, you can see Tupac in Harlem, New York, with members of Live Squad. E-Moneybags is also in the background. The video clearly shows just how much Pac was rocking with New York at the time, and the influence that E-Moneybags and Live Squad were having on him.
Thug life is not one thing. We're not in one circle, we stay everywhere. We represent Harlem, we represent Brooklyn, Bronx, Staten Island, Queens, LA, Oakland, we represent Texas, Houston, Baltimore, every country, Louisiana, we don't give a we represent every brick and every piece of cement in this country.
However, at the same time as Bags was actively fighting that war in the streets against Supreme, he would find himself fighting a different war in the music industry. That war was against his former classmate, Jay-Z. As mentioned, Jay went to high school with Bags back in Brooklyn. They both knew each other on a personal level. Long before Jay became a billionaire, he was regularly asking Bags for favors off the strength of them going to high school together. In the 90s, Jay was an up-and-coming artist. Back then, there was no such thing as social media, no Spotify or SoundCloud. One of the ways that a rapper would get promo was by having DJs play their music at events. Jay-Z would ask Bags to pull strings and get the DJs to play Jay's music. He would also ask Bags to use his connections to Queens rappers and have them work with Jay. This included Nas. Jay had actually asked Bags to bring Nas to the video shoot for his song, Dead Presidents. Bags asked Nas to come. However, Nas said no, and Bags would go there by himself. Bags would rap about this situation on his track, The Gospel. On the track, Bags would say, quote, Jay wanted Nas in his Dead Presidents video, who the hell you think he hollered at yo? Real connected with real, those were the days, and it ain't my fault, he ain't accept your invitation. End quote. This would cause tension between Jay and Nas. When Nas later dissed Jay on the legendary track, Ether, he would also speak about this. On Ether, Nas would drop the following subliminal at Jay-Z, saying, quote, calling my crib, and I ain't even give you my numbers. End quote. That's because Jay went through E-Moneybags to get into contact with Nas. Bags' problem with Jay was much simpler, and came after Jay disrespected Bags in the worst way. The story goes that, one night, Bags and Prodigy were at the Music Palace Studio, a legendary recording studio in Long Island, New York. Sometime during the night, Prodigy would leave the studio and head to the store. While driving to the store, Prodigy turned on the radio. He tuned into Hot 97. To his surprise, Jay-Z was at Hot 97 that night and was live on air. Jay had also brought Beanie Sigel, Freeway, and the Young Guns with him. After returning back to the studio, Prodigy stayed in the car and continued listening to the radio. Jay and everybody were freestyling, and Prodigy wanted to hear what they had to say. It was Beanie Sigel's turn on the mic when Beanie suddenly started dissing Mobb Deep. Prodigy got angry and continued listening to see what else they would say. That's when Jay-Z took the mic again and proceeded to introduce a new artist live on the radio. That new artist was named E-Moneybags.
Memphis Bleak is in the building, you heard me? Beanie Sigel is in the house, you heard me? Reason. We got E-Moneybags in the house too. Marcy Projects, Brooklyn, holla at me, you know?
This caught Prodigy by surprise. Why was Jay co-signing a new rapper named E-Moneybags when he knew there was already an E-Moneybags? After realizing what was happening, Prodigy quickly ran inside the studio and told E-Moneybags to hurry up outside because there was something he needed to hear. They then got in the car, and Bags then found out what Jay was doing. To say that Bags was furious would be an understatement. To understand why Bags was so angry, we have to understand what New York was like back in those days. New York was a different place in the 90s. In those days, originality was one of the most important values in New York street and hip-hop culture. Copying somebody's style or biting them was considered a dishonorable thing to do and would often come with consequences. More importantly, for someone in the streets, as E-Moneybags was, having someone play with your name was considered the ultimate form of disrespect. Gangsters would put in serious work to build their names and wouldn't take kindly to anybody taking away from that. The legendary TV show, The Wire, clearly illustrates this point. In Season 5, members of the Stanfield drug organization are rounded up and thrown into a holding cell. In the scene, the leader, Marlo, finds out that his rival, Omar Little, was out in the street, calling him out by name, and saying that Marlo was scared. Marlo, who is normally very calm and collected, then becomes furious. He then yells one of the most iconic lines in the entire series, screaming at his crew. "My name is my name." Bags was no different. The name that he had built in the streets was being played with, and he couldn't let it slide. Even worse, Jay-Z was co-signing it all, despite the fact that he knew who E-Moneybags was, and after Jay had asked Bags for favors on several occasions. Bags understandably felt more violated by Jay than E-Moneybags. Bags and Prodigy then got out of the car and went back in the studio. Bags told Prodigy to call into Hot 97 so Bags could talk to Jay live on air. Prodigy then called up Hot 97, told the person on the line who it was, and handed the phone to Bags. Thinking it was Prodigy on the line, Jay was then ambushed when he started talking and realized E-Moneybags was on the other end of the phone. Although there isn't a copy of the phone call available online, possibly because Jay-Z's team had it scrubbed from the internet out of embarrassment, there is actually a transcript available. This is how the call went when Bags confronted Jay. Bags started the conversation, saying, "What's the word, son? It's me, E-Moneybags." Jay then said, "What up?" Bags then replied, "What's the word, son? Why did you go give an N-word my name?" Realizing that he was being pressed by Bags, Jay then said, "Yo, I don't appreciate you got this little youngster passing me the phone." Bags then shot back, "I don't appreciate you have an N-word up there with my name. What you got to say about that?" Jay then said, "Dog, that's his name. You want to speak to him?" Bags then said, "Yeah, put Hyrone on the phone." "Yeah, I know that N-word name is Hyrone." Jay then said, "Yo, E, I don't respect this." This got Bags angry. Bags then said, "Why ain't you respecting that I'm asking about an N-word with my name, dog? You acting like you didn't holla at me to get nods for you." Jay then violated Bags, saying, "That was then." Jay was basically saying, "Yeah, we were cool when I needed you, but now that I'm good, that's no longer the case." Realizing what it was, Bags then yelled, "Oh, you that N-word now? Oh, you built like that, Duke? Nah, you ain't built like that. Yo, I ain't got nothing more to say." Bags then ended the conversation. Bags was furious. Not only did Jay co-sign another man biting Bags' name, but Jay responded by fronting on Bags on one of New York's biggest radio stations. After hanging up the phone, Bags told Prodigy he was going to kill Jay-Z. When it came to Bags, everyone knew this was more of a promise than a threat. Jay-Z also knew this, because, an hour later, he picked up the phone and called Nas, scared for his life. Jay was on the phone, trying to get Nas to save him from Bags. Jay told Nas to calm down Bags, reminding him that they had both gone to school together, and asking why Prodigy was adding fuel to the fire. However, speaking to Nas didn't help Jay. In a later interview, Bags would publicly state that Jay-Z had forced his hand, and that he was at war with Jay, both on wax and in real life. Bags then said that if Jay-Z loved his life, he wouldn't have wanted things to come to this, and that he wouldn't have fronted on the phone, like he was something he's not. Bags then said, "I don't write lyrics. I write lyrics. 'Cause I live this shit." It was clear, Bags was going to kill Jay-Z, and he would even go as far as making it publicly known.
I said, "Come on, let's go inside and call out 97. So we went inside the studio, we call out 97. Somebody picked up. I said, "Yo, it's Prodigy. I'll speak to Jay-Z." "Yo, P, he just left, man. They just left. They just got in the elevator and just." I said, "Yo, go get him." He said, "All right." They went outside to go get him. Jay-Z came back upstairs. Got on the phone. "Yo, what's up, yo?" I said, "Yo, man, somebody want to talk to you." Gave the phone to E. He like, "Yo, what up, nigga?" Hey, yo, who this? He said, "E-Moneybags, man. What up, nigga?" He like, oh, what up, yo, what up, what up?" Yeah, yo, what up with this? Who the fuck is H-Moneybags, son? Who this nigga you down there? Come on, nigga, you don't try to play me, son. You know, niggas think that's my name, son. That's my shit. That's what I'm running with, nigga. You got somebody with my name, nigga? And him and Bags start arguing. So then Jay-Z said some shit to Bags like, nigga, I don't give a fuck. Whatever, nigga. Whatever. Bags like, whatever? Oh, nigga, so alright, you know what it is when I see you then, right? So then Jay-Z said, "Yeah, you know what it is." And Bags like, "Oh, word? Alright, cool." Bang, hang up, right? Bang. Burn, son. I'm gonna fire this nigga, son. This nigga playing games with me, son. I'm clapping this nigga. I'm like, man, fuck that nigga, son. You know what I'm saying?
Jay was understandably scared for his life. He violated one of New York's biggest gangsters, and there was nobody that could save him, not even Nas. Only a few years earlier, Tupac had been shot and killed in the middle of the Vegas Strip after violating a Compton Crip gang member. Jay-Z had now set himself up to be the next rapper to get taken out by the streets. We could have been talking about how Bags killed Jay-Z at this point in this story. However, to Jay's luck, Bags wouldn't get that opportunity after the war with Supreme would take a tragic turn. At the same time as he was going after Jay-Z, Bags had been bringing the war to Supreme and everyone associated with him. Supreme knew he had to act. Supreme knew that Bags was never going to stop until he got him. In response, Supreme put contracts on the heads of E-Moneybags and Big Nose Troy. Each contract was reportedly worth $50,000. The crew from Harlem then heard about the bounty on E-Moneybags and decided to take it. E-Moneybags was known to frequent a certain area of Queens, known as Queens Village. Bags' friend, Majesty, had a house in the area where Bags would normally go. However, there was also an apartment building on 111th Street that overlooked the area. One of the people who lived in that building was a woman named Nicole Brown. At the time, Brown had been dating a man named Dennis Crosby. Crosby, who went by the nickname Divine, knew about the hit on E-Moneybags and ordered his then-girlfriend to perform surveillance on E-Moneybags from her apartment. From July 13 to July 16, 2001, Brown would secretly use a camera to videotape E-Moneybags while he was on the street below her apartment. On July 16, 2001, E-Moneybags was parked on 111th Street in his Lincoln Navigator. He was chilling with Majesty. There was a get-together at the house, and Majesty briefly went back inside to get some more food, leaving Bags alone in the Navigator. Ironically, this was the same Navigator that started the problems between Bags and Supreme. What Bags didn't know, however, was that Brown had been secretly recording him all day, and that there was a hit squad on its way. At approximately 9:45 p.m., 3 hitmen then ambushed Bags as he was sitting alone in the Navigator, on the phone. The shooters were wearing white gloves, and would fire approximately 40 shots into Bags' car, at point-blank range. Bags was hit 11 times, and would be pronounced dead at the scene. He was only 30 years old. Upon hearing news of Bags' death, Supreme would immediately begin celebrating. That very same day, and shortly after the shooting, Supreme would unknowingly make a phone call to a police informant, and tell him that Black just could finally rest in peace. Supreme would then text another person, saying, quote, "You missed a party," end quote. Pictures of E-Moneybags' body, slumped over in his Lincoln Navigator, would soon make it to the internet. Supreme also had made sure that the assassination was videotaped. However, as we'll see, the decision to videotape the assassination would ultimately lead to Supreme's downfall. 1 month later, in August 2001, police would raid a drug stash house all the way out in Baltimore, Maryland. Supreme had expanded his drug operation to Maryland, and the raid had come after a drug-related murder involving a Supreme team associate. The associate had been pulled over by authorities in North Carolina with 2 kilos of cocaine on him. After the arrest, the associate refused to let the Supreme team's lawyer handle the case, as was standard procedure at the time. This led Supreme to believe that the associate was planning on cooperating with the police. Supreme then arranged the associate's murder in the same parking lot where the Supreme team's stash house was. While investigating the murder, police learned about the stash house and then raided it less than a week later. During the raid, police would find drugs, guns, and cash. However, they would also find a certificate of attendance for a firearms training course. On the certificate was a name that police knew Supreme had regularly used as an alias. This was significant because Supreme was a convicted felon, and it would have been illegal for him to have possessed firearms. This would eventually lead Supreme to be arrested and convicted on federal weapons charges. However, the most incriminating evidence that police would find during the raid was a videotape. When the police played the tape, they quickly realized it was a tape of E-Moneybags' assassination. But, before the police would arrest Supreme, he was able to settle one last score. Big Nose Troy was still alive and well, and Supreme knew that Troy would take him out the first chance he got, as retaliation for killing his good friend, E-Moneybags. Supreme had also put a $50,000 price on Troy's head. The contract would be taken by a well-known hitman, named Aaron Granton. Granton, better known by his nickname, eBay, was no stranger to contract killing, as he was the man responsible for killing Daryl Baum. Baum, better known by his nickname, Homo, was a notorious gangster from Queens, and is famously known as Mike Tyson's close friend and former bodyguard, and also for being named in 50 Cent's famous song, Many Men. As an interesting side note, eBay had killed Homo on the instructions of notorious Brooklyn gangster, and former boyfriend of rapper Lil' Kim, Damian World Hardy. In retaliation for Baum's killing, Mike Tyson would then allegedly put out his own contract on Hardy's head.
I dedicate this fight to my brother, Darryl Baum, who died. I'll be there to see you. I love you with all my heart.
However, on October 21, 2001, a little more than 3 months after Baggs was killed, Big Nose Troy would be killed by 2 gunmen at a sports bar on Liberty Avenue in Jamaica, Queens. He was only 33 years old at the time. However, the police's recovery of E-Moneybags' videotaped assassination would mark the beginning of the end for Supreme. On January 3, 2003, Murder Inc.'s offices would be raided by police. Police alleged that a movie that Supreme had produced, named Crime Partners, had been financed using drug money. They further accused Irv Gotti of using Murder Inc. to launder Supreme's drug money. After going on trial, Irv and Chris Gotti were acquitted in 2005. Supreme would then be charged for the murders of Eric E-Moneybags Smith and Big Nose Troy Singleton. At his trial, prosecutors alleged it was a case of murder for hire, and that Supreme had paid $50,000 each in order to take out Baggs and Troy. Not only did police have a video of E-Moneybags' murder, but Supreme's assets had also been frozen by the government, and he therefore had to rely on a public defender. It was over. Supreme would be convicted of both murders. The prosecutor originally wanted to make it a death penalty case. At the death penalty hearing, witnesses heard emotional testimony from the families of E-Moneybags and Big Nose Troy. Troy's then 14-year-old son would give emotional testimony, explaining to the court how hard his life now was without his father. He would say, quote, "My father was a wonderful human being. Some days, I always think, if he was here, my life would be much better. At school, I think of him all the time. One time, I waited for him to see if he was going to come and pick me up. He never did." End quote. E-Moneybags' mother also said a few words, describing herself as the saddest person on the earth. Supreme would avoid the death penalty, but would be sentenced to life without parole. He was 46 years old. As of December 2024, Supreme has served 22 years in prison, and is currently 68 years old. E-Moneybags' death would mark the end of an era in Queens. He was one of the last true street legends from that time period, a fearless stick-up kid who lived and died by the code. Through his connections to artists like Prodigy, Noriega, and Tupac, Baggs had one foot in hip-hop and one foot in the streets. But unlike his high school classmates who chose music, Baggs chose the streets, and ultimately paid the price that comes with that life. In many ways, E-Moneybags embodied both the best and worst aspects of that era in New York. The loyalty, the fearlessness, but also the brutal violence that claimed so many lives. His story serves as a stark reminder of the real consequences of street life, even for those who seemed untouchable. While rappers told stories about the streets, Baggs lived it, remaining true to his words until the end. "I don't write lyrics. I write lives. 'Cause I live this shit. And that's why he's a certified savage." Please comment, like, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. More certified savages is on the way.